If you've been looking for a quieter escape just outside of Charleston, chances are John's Island has caught your attention. It's one of the most unique parts of the metro, blending coastal charm with a more rural feel. You'll find open spaces, dense forests, and some incredible marsh views that make it feel as though you're stepping into an entirely different world compared to the busier suburbs. People are drawn here for the slower pace of life and natural beauty, but it's also becoming one of the fastest growing areas of Charleston. That growth brings a lot of opportunity, but it also comes with challenges. So let's dive right in. John's Island is located here, just west of James Island and south of West Ashley, about a 25-minute drive to downtown, but this also depends on where you live. What surprises a lot of people is how big John's Island actually is. It's about 84 square miles, making it the fourth largest island on the East Coast and the largest in South Carolina by far. That size, combined with its low population density, is what makes it so unique. It's one of the closest places you can live to Kiowa without actually being on Kiowa itself, which is great if you work out there or you just want closer access to that beach. One of the biggest pros of John's Island is that it really does feel like the countryside of Charleston. It's peaceful and quiet with wide open spaces, working farms, and a lot of uninhabited land that's tough to find this close to downtown. It's one of my favorite places to drive because many of the roads are completely covered by tree canopies, and at times it feels as though you're driving through a forest. If you are looking for a true escape without being hours away from Charleston, John's Island is one of the best places you can do that. Another big pro of John's Island is the agricultural lifestyle and all the outdoor activities that come with it. You'll find plenty of working farms that offer community support agricultural programs where you can pay upfront for a share of the harvest throughout the season. It's common to see roadside produce stands, farmers markets, and of course oyster roasts. A lot of locals buy their produce and meat directly from the source, and restaurants like Wild Olive and the Royal Tern use locally sourced ingredients, so the farm-to-table connection really extends into the community. Because the island is so large with a lower population density, you can find homes on spacious lots with plenty of room. And with the Stono and Kiowa rivers bordering the island, it's a great spot for boating, fishing, and kayaking. If you or your kids are into riding horses, John's Island actually has several equestrian centers, including Mullet Hall at Johns Island County Park, Eden Wind Farm, Del Mar Stables, and the Stono River Stables. Each offers lessons, so you'll have plenty of options. And honestly, I think this fact alone gives you an idea of what John's Island is all about. Charleston is a busy metropolitan area, but John's Island has not one, not two, not three, but 4 stables. And of course, you can't talk about John's Island without mentioning the Angel Oak Tree. It's a massive southern live oak, estimated to be about 300 and 400 years old. It's actually the largest live oak east of the Mississippi. The tree is about 65 feet tall. It shades 17,000 square feet. It's one of those things you just have to see in person if you ever visit the island, and admission to the area is actually free. Another big pro of John's Island is the housing itself. There is a ton of variety in neighborhoods and with housing, with older neighborhoods starting in the 300s and newer neighborhoods in the 500s and beyond. Major development here really didn't take off until the early 2000s, and since then it's been one of the fastest growing areas for newer construction homes. That means you'll find neighborhoods with great curb appeal, a variety of styles, and common Lowcountry touches like double porches, gas lanterns, and coastal colors, especially in areas like Oakfield, Stoneview, and Maybank Village. Some communities even have water access so you can launch your boat. There are some older homes on the island, but most are situated along major roadways. And this is a point I have to touch on. Most of John's Island was built out as a rural area. There were small back roads, and individuals built homes on lots off of these small back roads. However, development and infrastructure crept up, and what was once a small back road is now a busy 2 or 4 lane highway. The homes that were built still remain, and to a modern home shopper, they seem out of place just being feet from major roads. But when you understand the historical context, it makes perfect sense. In terms of home prices, John's Island is historically more affordable than James Island, but is a little bit more expensive than West Ashley. However, we have seen recent shifts in price on John's Island, with home prices climbing higher than ones found on James Island just this year. As of August 2025, the median sales price for single-family homes on John's Island was $738,000, while townhomes and condos averaged around $415,000. For comparison, the median sales price on James Island was $733,000, and in West Ashley it was $548,000. Now let's talk about one of the biggest cons of living on John's Island, and that's the traffic. There are only 2 main ways to get on or off the island. That's Maybank Highway and Main Road. Both get heavily backed up during commuting hours, and unlike some other parts of Charleston, there are no other back road options to get around it. On the north side, traffic bottlenecks where Main Road meets Highway 17, and you will be sitting in stop-and-go traffic. If you worked out town, you'll likely take Maybank Highway over to James Island and then use the connector, but that route has a lot of commuter traffic too. Living on an island makes adding new infrastructure complicated and expensive, which is why the road network here hasn't expanded much. I've had clients who fell in love with John's Island but ultimately decided against it because the commute was just too much to bear, with their job being located in, say, North Charleston Charleston or Mount Pleasant. At the same time, I've had other clients who work in West Ashley or James Island and find the drive a little bit more manageable. But for folks who work near Kiowa, Johns Island is one of the best places to live since you barely deal with traffic at all compared to the cities further north. And if you have a remote job, the traffic here is almost a non-issue, so take that into consideration too. It really comes down to where you need to be on a daily basis, and this will determine how much time you need to spend in the car. The good news here is that there are major improvements on the way. A major project called Main Road Segment A officially kicked off this year with an estimated budget of around $400 million that's already been funded. The plan includes building a flyover on Highway 17 so traffic can flow without stopping in West Ashley, along with building a new roundabout at the main Chisholm and River roads to help local traffic move more smoothly. The project is scheduled to be finished by late 2028 or early 2029, but you know how that goes. Regardless, it's going to make a huge difference once it's completed, though the process of getting there will probably make traffic worse before it gets better. Another con of living on Johns Island is the limited commercial development. At its core, this is still a very residential and agricultural community, so you won't find the same amount of shops, restaurants, or other services that you would find in other parts of Charleston. There are only a handful of grocery stores, with Food Lion being the main option, and a Harris Teeter on the south side near Kiowa. For most big box stores or chain restaurants, you'll need to head into West Ashley or James Island, and while both are relatively close, it does mean you'll be driving more often if you can't find what you need on the island itself. Healthcare is also another factor to consider. Johns Island does have an urgent care, but there isn't an emergency room. The closest ER is on James Island, which is something to keep in mind if you're retiring or have ongoing health concerns. The reason there isn't more commercial development here comes down to zoning and community preference. Much of the island is zoned rural or agricultural, and bringing in larger shopping centers or office parks can be tough. Even when developers propose them, there's often pushback from locals who want to preserve the character of the island and avoid adding even more traffic. That resistance is part of why Johns Island still feels less developed than other places like West Ashley or Mount Pleasant. The silver lining here is that for many people, this is exactly what makes Johns Island so appealing. If you value living in a place that still has that rural feel, fewer shopping centers, and more open space, the lack of commercial development might actually be positive for you. And now, another con of living on Johns Island is the risk of flooding. According to FEMA flood maps, large portions of the island fall within designated flood zones. The light blue areas are flood zone AE, which represent the 100-year floodplain. That means there's roughly a 1% chance of flooding in any given year, and if you're in one of these zones and have a mortgage, flood insurance is required. The orange areas represent flood zone X, where flood insurance isn't required, and if there's no color at all, that means that we're outside the special flood hazard areas with only about a 1 in 500 year flood risk. The good news is that Johns Island isn't as flood prone as James Island, but there are still plenty of spots here that fall into that high risk category. And flood insurance is another cost you'll need to factor in on top of your mortgage, which can make a real difference in your monthly budget. That's why it's so important to know exactly what zone your property is before you make an offer. The silver lining is that many newer construction homes on Johns Island have already been built up either with raised foundations or the grading itself to reduce that risk. But if you're looking at an older home along one of the main roads, we need to make sure it's not in flood zone AE. For some, Johns Island could be the perfect place to live as the countryside of Charleston with a coastal atmosphere. There are great local farms, newer construction homes, and plenty of great things to do outdoors. But the drawbacks to living here are not for everyone, especially if you hate traffic. If you have any questions about Johns Island or any other suburb around Charleston, don't hesitate to reach out. As a top real estate team here in the Lowcountry, we want to earn your business and be a resource for real estate. Our contact info is always in the video description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.